I just played a hand against Alexander Kostritsyn that got me up to 12 million. I had around 6 million to start the hand. So it's just around a little bit under 40 big blinds, maybe like 35 big blinds. Alexander Kostritsyn, for those that don't know, really strong online player, known as Joyce online, one of the very best. Folds around to him and he just calls on the button. And once he calls on the button, it's very important to start defining his hands already. So he's not going to have the very top of his range because he's most likely going to be raising this in this situation more often than not. And so like a lot of hands he could be having are like suited aces, like ace-2 suited through, in my head I would think like ace-6, something like that. Offsuit aces, maybe like around like ace-8 through ace-8 offsuit to ace-10 offsuit, which he might also raise. I think he's more likely to raise those. There's some offsuit Broadway combinations, some high card and low card combinations that would be really good limps, like a king-5 suited or like a jack-9 suited. So there's a bunch of hands he could be limping, but it's very important to keep in mind that those are mostly medium hands. So he's not going to have ace-queen. And if he does have those, he's certainly not going to limp in and then just call my raise. So it's already important to define what's going to happen when he calls my raise, which I figure is a very likely result. In this hand, it's my turn, I have ace-queen suited. Given what his range is, I think this is a clear raise. Given the situation, pot odds, everything, and stack sizes, I decide on a raise to 4 times the big blind, which against his pretty strong range is okay. I could even go bigger, maybe up to 5 times the big blind, but it's also fine to keep his hands in, so to speak, as they do not have too much equity against me. I actually end up dominating quite a bit of his continuing range, and that's very important because if I flop top pair, stacks are going to go in, and then I can have the best top pair, and that's where I make most of the money this way. And also I'm just like way ahead, so I raise to 4 times the big blind. Big blind folds right away. Alex calls after a little bit of thought, and once again, you know, as I said about his range, mostly medium strength hands. We can now discount like the bottom suited crap he decided to limp if he had that. So he's mostly going to have like around like an ace X kind of hand, or he's going to have broadways, suited stuff, and that's important to keep in mind because the board now comes ace-10, ace-10-7 with a flush draw on the board. It's kind of an interesting situation already where I believe I should be continuation betting a lot, as his range sort of looks like this, and also with my hand I definitely want to get all the money in. Now on ace-10-7 I decided on a small bet to to make him call with a bunch of stuff, and also the board is not too dangerous yet. You know, this very well might change if the turn comes a jack, a king, another 10, like an 8, like a card that completes a flush. But like as long as the turn card doesn't complete the flush, I think I have a hand that's strong enough to continue betting. So I keep that in mind with my bet size, and I choose like a pretty small size, which as I have a very strong range, you know, he also has to take my range into account, which is just all the really good hands. I have all ace-10 offsuit combinations. I might have ace-7 suited. I have 7s, 10s, aces, ace-king, ace-queen, all of those. So he has to fold a lot to that bet size already. And if he doesn't, well, then I'm going to get to apply pressure on the turn. Now, he calls, which is fine, you know, I made a small bet, so he's going to be calling quite a bit, right? So the turn is a jack of hearts, which is a kind of interesting card because it does give him the jack-10 offsuit 2 pair. He does not have ace-jack offsuit pre-flop, which is important because ace-jack offsuit most likely would raise himself or just limp raise me all in. Given our stack sizes, it would be a better play than to limp call. So he does not have ace-jack offsuit, which would be annoying because then he has a better 2 pair. He might have jack-10, but I think his most likely hand at this point is like a low-suited ace that he just limp called. And also very important to keep in mind now is when I decide to bet the turn, which I think I have to, the only decision for me at this point is how much am I going to bet on the turn. I think there's no argument in checking simply because I dominate all his aces, right? So I want to put more money in the middle. The real problem now becomes is what do I bet? If I think about the jack on the turn, what it really does is it gives him like a lot more equity in his hand. He can have a hand like 7-8, like 7-8 is a pair and a gut shot, and then a queen jack, and that's a pair and a gut shot. And there's like all these hands he now has, other than a worse ace X, they have now picked up more equity against my hand on the turn. He could also just have like a random king 5, queen 5 with the flush draw, jack something with a flush draw. Those would all be perfectly fine for him to limp with, but I think it's very unlikely he's turn 2 pair at this point. He does not have jack 7 offsuit. That would be a bit of an absurd limp. So he does not have 10-7 offsuit. So like those 2 pairs don't exist. He might have ace-7 offsuit, in which case I'm kind of screwed, but I still have plenty of equity. So I decide that my best course of action here is to just go all in, deny him his equity with like his pair plus gut shot straight draws, put him into a really tough spot if he has an ace, and then potentially get called if he has like ace-9 or like ace-6 or something, and he probably has to call those. I'm not sure. It's a tough spot for him. Yeah, and that just makes it very difficult for him to play there. Actually, in this end, I have ace-queen of diamonds. I go all in, and he thinks for a little bit, and he decided he has to call with ace-9 offsuit, which is a pair and a gut shot, but it's the top pair with the gut shot, so I think his call is completely fine. But really what my all-in bet on the turn is designed to do, which is around 1.5 times to 2 times the size of the pot, it's to make him fold those hands that I don't want to call again. If I bet like a standard size of like half the pot to 3/4 of the pot, he's getting the right price to continue, while offering me none of the benefits. I'm going to get to see a very terrible river card, and then I'm not going to know what to do like half the time basically. So like in this actual hand, if I were to bet like around half the pot, he could have called, and then the river would have been a 10. Now, I'm not sure how I would have played on the 10 river with my ace-queen, given like all the considerations, given how many 10s he has himself, given how many 10s he has if I only bet half the pot, and like all of those would continue. So I personally think going all in for around 1.5 times the size of the pot is the clear play here. Not necessarily wanting to get called, but rather to deny him equity of hands that like I don't want to call. And then personally also maybe get called by hands that I've beat. You know, like ace-9, as I said before, it's a call there. He has to call me, and it's just how the hand works. You know, I think ace-queen just works perfectly as an overbet shove on the turn, simply because of how all the ranges work.